banter aside, does preseason results, we know that fitness in preseason matters, of course. Does preseason really matter?
Yes. Preseason matters.
The results don't matter. No.
Results.
But obviously, like the performances matter. But if you lose, who cares? It's about how the game went in terms of like, your main 11 players. Because if you play a pretty strong 11 and then you go out there and you look like trash and then you lose, then yeah, it does matter because you looked bad. But I don't think losing preseason games doesn't really matter. It's about more so the performance.
So if you
it's a matter of how you lose. This here's the thing. Preseason matters because we all sit here. First of all, football fans are hypocrites. We all at some point say something and we're hypocritical about it later. Preseason, I think, is the biggest one. We all like to sit here and say preseason doesn't matter. Ha ha ha. Who cares? It was just a friendly game. Yet we sit here. We demand our clubs to get their signings in early so these players can come in, build up the fitness, build up the team chemistry, and play in preseason. So even that, 3, 4, 5 games that all our teams play in preseason, that's when you afford fuck-ups. As Will said, that's when results don't matter. But then the season starts and you're like, you know what? We had our time to gel in preseason. This is why we all sit here and make fun of teams who get their business done late, and we praise teams who get their business done early. Why? Because we all want them in preseason. Preseason is your chance to try new things going into the season, whether you're a new manager or if you're a manager who just made a couple new signings and you want to try new tactics, you want to try to implement a few things, that is the chance for you to do that. So when we sit here and say preseason doesn't matter, of course it matters. Because you're not going to start the first game of the season and in game week 1, your manager's going to start tweaking things that he wanted to tweak going into the season. But he said, you know what, fuck, I don't want to do it in preseason. I'll just do it game week 1. That's when you lose your head because of results. So, of course, it matters.
Wait,
so be hypocrites and pick and choose when to talk about a preseason game and when not to. And today we got a pure example of that.
But then isn't it more so, again, the performance matters versus the result? So do you think losses matter in preseason?
It's
like which one do
you
think is like more important?
So I'll tell you what. If you put out, I'm going to use Madrid right here. If Madrid put their first team for the first 45 minutes, all your best players, Mbappe, Vinny, and you're running 1-0. And then in the second half, you take them all out and you're giving 45 minutes to all the second string players, academy players, youngsters, and you lose that half 2-0 and you end up losing the game 2-1. I'm not going to look at that game and say Madrid fans should be angry because they lost today. Because who gives a fuck? You played well in the first half. You only led by a goal. But then eventually you lost because you just made hella subs. And it was just all about fitness. Context matters. Let's not act like we don't watch the games and understand the context of the game. If all our players, our main starters, just play 45 minutes and then you see a whole new team come on for the second half, I'm hardly going to judge that team. But when you watch a game like today, because I know where this conversation is building from, because we watched a game today that, to be fair, it felt like a Premier League game in terms of intensity and in terms of the way both teams are playing. Yes, you did see a lot today of what you're going to see next season in terms of Spurs and Arsenal. So if Arsenal fans want to come out and say, today I saw some worrying signs, I think it's valid. If Spurs want to come out and say, I saw some positive signs because it's technically Tuchel's, I keep calling him Tuchel, Thomas Frank's first kind of big game with Spurs, yes, you can make points about that. So yes, the context, it just matters on how you're going to talk about it. People who want to ignore the context, then you can call it out. But context matters.
But certain fans deserve banter, though. Like,
what phase is Thomas Frank in?
Like, certain fans deserve to get cooked. Like, for example, right? Big up to Igal. But this guy's on Twitter. Oh, look at Liverpool against AC Milan, the back line, and this is not going to blah, blah, blah. And then today, preseason matters. Well, it kind of mattered when you were trying to banter Liverpool. So then it's kind of like then you get it back.
But can I defend Igal there though? But this is what I mean. There's a lot of serious. But I will defend Igal there because there are serious matters in the world that follow this same path. We pick and choose when the banter began. The only reason Igal did that is because the same people that are now calling him a hypocrite were laughing at Arsenal for only beating AC Milan 1-0 in a preseason game. And this is the problem that I find, is it's finding the origin of this. I don't disagree with anything really that Staffy said. I think you have to look at elements. For instance, United, Areola last night said Manchester United are a different breed or words to that effect. Out of this world, we're nowhere near them. We were very, very good last night. But what I didn't see was Staffy tweeting saying, "Oh my God, I think we can win the Premier League." That's because Staffy knows that one good performance and scoring
my left chat. I can't lie. They were going crazy.
The only tweets I saw from you were negative ones, to be fair. But like, you're not going to tweet out suddenly and go, "I've changed my mind. Ruben Amorim isn't going to fail. I've changed my mind. We're not a dead club," because it's one particular.
Keep regurgitating that. We'll revisit that.
I know. I'm defending you here. You made a point that it's just not going to work.
You're not
one
really
good preseason game isn't going to make Staffy, and he's right, change his mind. It's not a big enough indicator. Equally, on my match reaction for Arsenal today, I thought individual players, and I called out Declan Rice, I called out Martinelli, I called out the crossing from set pieces from Odegaard and Saka, to name a few things. I criticized those elements because they were nowhere near good enough. But equally, that poor performance doesn't take away from the fact that I thought they were quite good against Newcastle, and I thought they were really good and probably should have scored more goals against AC Milan. I look at all of those games together and go, I wouldn't say it's been a disastrous preseason. Equally, I'm not saying, fucking hell, they look like the greatest team since Barcelona in 2009. There's always this lack of balance because everybody does this to a certain degree. We pick and choose when banter should exist. If I said today United are going to win the Premier League because of how we played last night, I'd be called stupid. The same people saying I'm stupid, very likely to say this proves Arsenal can't win the league, Terry. And I just sit there and I just think both things are just so polarized and there's no nuance. Because you explained it properly, Staffy. There's indicators in there, yes, but there shouldn't be a conclusion drawn. And I'll tell you as to why. There's so many elements of preseason games that are not real. And you saw it in today's match with Arsenal. You actually saw it in that game against Leeds a lot as well. How many fouls happened and there's no yellow cards? The amount of time Spurs dragged an Arsenal player down today, you couldn't do that in a real game. There could be a few yellow cards. It changes the complexity. Equally, when you're making 9 subs in the second half, I've done it with Man United every game. As soon as we make a mass amount of subs, 69 minutes was last night. That's where I really assessed the game. I assessed the first 69 minutes because 9 subs, 10 subs, that's so you can't judge a football match after that point because that's abnormal to the rules of the game. You're suddenly not in a real football match because you're not able to do that. So I agree with you, Staffy, 100%.
But banter is always going to exist there. You're doing too much with the banter part because banter exists. I'm not going to lie. Win, lose, or draw, banter exists. Yesterday, I've seen people say, "Oh, you're not going to win the league now," because like obviously people were saying our first back-to-back Premier League wins. We're on top of the table because we're in that Premier League summer series, so we're on top of the table. That is banter. Banter exists anyways. The issue is, and this is why I'm frustrated. It's just like when it comes to Arsenal, we have to walk on eggshells. I am not going to walk on eggshells around you, Arsenal fans. You can have Terry Flewers sit on the football terrace for a 24-hour stream defending you guys all you want, and I still won't give a shit. I still will say what I want to say, and fans will still say what they want to say. When you go and you play a game of football, and a lot of us seen a lot of what you've seen in this game today, we've seen it over the last season and the season before. This is not just a one-off. This is a continuation of what we've seen in terms of performances. We talked about what type of signings that you need. We talked about what signings we don't agree with, the likes of like Norgard not being that good, blah, blah, blah. And the likes of maybe you need an Eze, you needed a Rodrigo, the type of strikers we were talking about. And this is when you called me out, and this is why I said, I'm going to be on the top 6 today. When I was talking about Gyökeres, first of all, I didn't slander Gyökeres today. I slandered his manager. The reason I slandered his manager is because I sat on this very channel for weeks and months predicting what I think is going to happen. I know what Gyökeres is as a player. I know what Arteta is as a manager, and I just don't think it's going to mesh. I think the right signing was to get Gyökeres fine. That shows ambition. But when you bring him in and he plays about 20 minutes of football and you're giving him Mitrovic shifts, the guy was playing like he's Mitrovic. He looked like he was fighting for his life every time that ball was being crossed because he's not used to. Bro, look at him again, bro. The guy got 2 touches in 20 minutes of football. You brought a striker on and he got 2 touches in 20 minutes of football. You can argue that's only because they were losing 1-0 and obviously Spurs just put everyone behind, so there's not going to be any space. That's fine. But then when people just talk about it and they're showing concern, once again, a game that you look at Arsenal and you say, you know what? They need a creator in the midfield. They need a creator down the left. You got Declan Rice getting 4 passes in 50 minutes of football. And I'm hearing people talking about Odegaard passing the ball back. No, you shouldn't be talking about Odegaard passing the ball back. You should be talking about why my midfield has only one progressive passer in Odegaard when I only have Norgard and I have Rice. We are talking about a team that we're going into this season that is going to be going head-to-head with Liverpool for the league. If you want to go head-to-head with Liverpool, I got to judge you by what I think Liverpool are going to do. And Liverpool have better players than I think that you have. So your manager needs to get certain things right. But when I'm seeing indications, once again in a game, that your manager is going to continue with what he did last season, and I don't think is going to benefit most of your players or your attackers like Gyökeres, then I'm going to call it out. It has nothing to do with banter. It has nothing to do with, just one preseason game. It's valid to call it out.
Well, okay, and it is valid to call it out. I want to call out one thing and this is very serious for a moment. There's no treading on eggshells. You lot are all in the group chats. I don't tell anybody what they can and can't call out. And
I said Arsenal fans.
Yes, but you said you don't care what Terry does. I ain't going to tread on eggshells.
You defend him. That's what it is.
Hang on, but that may imply to people that I tell people what they can and can't speak about, and I'm just shutting any amoeba down from saying that.
That's not what I'm saying.
I don't think you're saying that, but I know how the internet works. I
literally texted Terry in the chat saying I'm going to cook you today.
Hang on. Let me just finish. I know what the internet's like. I offered somebody a job once, and it was a full-time job, which meant I said, well, you have to dedicate yourself to the football terrace. They went around telling people I was trying to control them. So the internet is a very weird place. You've sometimes got to stamp these things out early. On the banter side of things, this is the thing. You're allowed to call out who you want. I'm not going to talk about it. But I also saw you put a quote tweet out where you were August 17th, we will be here, and you put out Gyökeres' stats from today, right? So that's you bantering and having fun with it as well. I don't look at that and go, that's serious analysis. The issue that I have is that people pick and choose when they can and can't banter. For instance, Igal calls things out. Well, I thought you said preseason was serious, Igal. Well, he was only doing it because people were bantering him in the same way you've put out that tweet. Someone now might respond to you with a tweet. When suddenly there's a cutoff point to when people can and can't banter. And equally, though, the only thing I disagree with you on is you sort of sat there and agreed with Will that when all the mass substitutions happen, it's hard to assess and judge a game, but yet you're taking the performances of Gyökeres after that point where the substitutions happen to go, I told you what I said might happen this season is right. But you're using a period of the game that you've also agreed isn't an area and time that you should judge because the mass substitutions have happened.
No, I said it's fair if you want to think the game was 1-0 at the time. It's fair to think that. No, hold on. It's fair to think that if you want to say, but it was down 1-0. And then you can probably argue if the game was earlier on and he was not playing 1-0 down, that's fair. I don't mind that counter. Then we're going to have to wait and watch again. But it doesn't take away from what I still watch from this Arsenal team. Again, another game where I'm looking at Martinelli doing the same thing down the left. No creativity from that area. Havertz doesn't even run any channels, so he doesn't really offer any threat over there. The only creativity just comes from Saka. And I feel bad for Saka because every time I watch him, it's just like he has to work overtime because of everyone else around him. That midfield was dead of Norgard, Odegaard, and Rice. And one of the things we talked about on Straight Facts for the last few weeks is that they might have certain midfielders that on paper they look good. I just don't see a dynamic. I don't see a three-man midfield that you can put out there that's going to have everything that you need, which is why they still need to address a creator. There's no point of doing all this if you're not going to address a creator. When you're still lumping the ball forward or you're just running down the flanks and crossing the ball again, that is a continuation of last season. You were offering nothing. There was no creative ideas with or without Gyökeres. So I understand you saying the period Gyökeres was on, but the gameplay was still the same.
But everything you just said there, though, I said on my match reaction. Everything, I didn't use the same words as you, but I criticized certain players. I also pointed out and said this to Brandon. I said, I get the frustrations coming from you. The one thing that I would point out, which I think is a fair, again, balance, is none of the new signings started or even in the matchday squad. And those new signings supposedly are coming in to address those issues that you're talking about. And what I don't do in preseason is draw, for instance, you're someone that thinks our midfield will get overrun and run through loads this year. And I agree with you by and large. Last night, though, when we had our main players on the pitch, we had 65% of the ball. We pinned them back. There's a few counters against us. I'm not going to watch last night and go, see, Staffy, you're fucking wrong. We had most of the ball last night.
Terry, I talked about
Casemiro and Bruno can work. No, I understand.
When you watch the whole season of Arsenal play that style of football.
I understand that, but I think I get your point. I do get your point. My view is just very much, and everything you said at the start, everyone would love all their signings in June. So the whole squad had a full preseason. So everybody was fully integrated. The issue with that is most clubs, even Liverpool that we've praised this year, are not going to have don't have all their signings in for preseason to fully integrate them. Chelsea that signed 3 players very early in the window are still now chasing Xavi Simons, and Hato's just arrived. Garnacho's going to come in. I mean, they're not even going to have a preseason. It's going to be very disjointed in that way. So I just think that we sometimes live in this kind of, we create this kind of utopia vision of all the players in early, fully integrated preseason, then I can make a different assessment. Those things are rare. Next summer, you're not going to get that. The World Cup's on, which means not one single club is going to have a real, full, wholehearted preseason. Yeah, so that's my only issue with the conversation is preseason's important for fitness. I agree with you and Will. Performance is a key. I just think it depends on the club or someone's convictions or agenda. I'm not saying you have an agenda. That I think we sometimes over-reg what we have seen. For instance, some people think Van Dijk's looking a bit dodgy and Liverpool's defense is really wobbly. They'll see the AC Milan game and go, "See, I told you I was right. That defense is getting cooked."
No, but you did say I have an agenda. You did say it on your match reaction. You said the reason I said what I said about Gyökeres is that when he fails, I could say, "Oh, I told you I was right." That was never the case.
Well, that's just a bit of banter. That's just a bit of banter. Because when you put out a tweet, this is it. But you do the same. You put out one tweet about Gyökeres with his stat. You've done exactly the same, Staffy. This cooking is turning. You're burning your fingers here. And I said to you earlier, you're about to throw water onto an oil fire. You put out one tweet showing Gyökeres' stats, and you talk about. And you're right. You talk about how the system is going to kill this guy next year. You put out another tweet saying 17th of August, we're here for you, implying we are going to cook Arsenal with it. So you're putting out seriousness and banter on your own feed. But yet when I put out a serious point and then a bit of banter, you cry about it, Staffy. Come on, bro. You're mental.
Reaction. I don't know if you're being serious or joking. You look like you are just actually saying, you know what? This is what fans want to do with Arsenal players. So when they fail or whatever, say, I called it. It's not about calling it, bro. I'm not getting, I mean, we do the joke on Friday where we get a certificate. I'm not getting a medal for having a correct prediction. I don't give a fuck about, bro. I don't want to win or guess the losing lottery ticket. I don't give a fuck about that. I'm just saying when fans watch and they have valid reasons to come out and say, this is what Arteta needs to do to get this player going. And in the first game, you're not seeing any indications of change. It's fine to say that. It is completely valid to say that. It's not an agenda. It has nothing to do with anything. And I do think I'll get proven wrong. It's not that I want to be proven right. I don't give a fuck about that. Sorry. I think I'll be proven right, but not that I give a fuck about it because it's not my team anyways. It's Arsenal. It's just, it's too obvious that with the type of signings that Arsenal making, the amount of money that they're spending, especially on Gyökeres, if the manager doesn't tweak anything and you see more performances of this where there's a lack of creativity, everything is slow, everything is just dead in the final third, he will eventually face his fate. And my prediction was that he will be the downfall of Arteta because people are going to look and say, no more excuses. We gave you money for attackers. You got Gyökeres in, and you can't get them firing. Time to give someone else the job.
The thing is, none of that I disagree with. And you're allowed to come on the terrace and say it.
So it's not an agenda. Good. Okay,
now look, this don't even matter for real because Arsenal aren't winning anything. So it doesn't really matter. Like this is a very long conversation for a team that's gonna come top. I'd say they probably come second at best, or I'm thinking third to be honest. And then at the end of the season, we're gonna have all the excuses for why they didn't win. And we didn't get Eze and we signed Madueke, so how could we win the Premier League? Blah blah blah. They're not gonna win shit anyway. So like I feel like kind of like like talking about Arsenal is like. Kind of pointless, bro. I don't do that. Like it's the same thing every season. It's the same thing.
I hear. We'll go to some super chats here. That was a great conversation. I love that. Staffy.